Max Verstappen is back in the title fight? Is the Red Bull car now good? If so, will Max Verstappen stay at Red Bull? What about the rumors that he's moving to McLaren? Why not Mercedes? What happened to George? Suddenly he's a lot more confident that he's going to drive for Mercedes. Could Max have won the Austrian GP if the strategy was better? What about Ferrari? Why did they fumble? Was it because of the strategy or did the upgrades not work? These are the questions you all have asked me when I put up a poll on Instagram. So let's talk about all of these questions and some extra news from the paddock. This is the Austrian GP 2026 audience Q&A. So yeah, according to Max Verstappen, he did not think he could be fighting for a win, and then he saw himself climbing up places. He was pleasantly surprised with the outcome of the race, but as an audience, what should we infer from this? We should exactly do what we did last week. We should be happy about the news that we received, but we should not extrapolate it to future events. When Lewis Hamilton won in Barcelona, we were happy. We said Lewis still got it. We talked about how Ferrari is looking a lot different and could even challenge for the championship, but it was all caveated with one statement: let's not get ahead of ourselves, and we had to wait till Austria. And now we knew what exactly happened in Austria this week. So definitely we can be happy for Max Verstappen's performance in Austria, but let's not get carried away. Let's also look at what Max is saying. Max is pretty realistic about these things. Even last year when he was asked about his championship chances, he did mention the fact that he had a championship chance only because his rivals McLaren were making mistakes and fortune was favoring him. And even this week, after Austria, the same question was asked to him about the championship, and he had mentioned a very realistic answer. He did start off joking by saying there is 98 points, which is less than what was the points difference last year, and also there are more races left. But then he immediately followed it up with the issues that are more real. He spoke about how the car isn't still rounded, there is a lot of room for development, and they are still fighting a ton of issues. Hadjar as well as Max had a lot of issues starting from the grid during races. They both complained that there were some issues which they didn't go deep into, but the second half of the race, Max was definitely struggling and it was a lot more difficult to drive. So there is a lot of homework left for Red Bull to do. There is scope for a decent charge to the front of the points, but let's not get carried away. We will see in the British GP if this momentum continues, or again, was it just the fact that Red Bull in Red Bull Ring and their dominance just continued to show. So there is a new rumor now, Max is moving to McLaren. So every week there is a fresh new update. You see someone talking to somebody on the paddock and suddenly the rumor spreads. So this week, Sky Sports has reported that Max Verstappen's team had met with McLaren's team principal, in this case it is Zach Brown, and it was reported that Max's team was desperate to meet with the McLaren boss. Now there is a contradicting report as well where Max's team manager, he mentioned and brushed it off saying that no such meeting happened and Max is focused on staying at Red Bull. Now this is definitely developing into a PR game in the end of the day. Max's team is potentially trying to put pressure on Red Bull to work harder to get more out of the car. But again, I don't want anyone to think that there is no input from Max on the development of the car. Max is only sitting there and Max's team is just putting pressure on Red Bull. Max definitely has a lot of inputs about the car and he is definitely going to give feedback that helps develop the car. And in the end of the day, he is also expected to work hand in hand and work hard to get the car to be as best as possible. The rumor also mentioned that Oscar Piastri's camp is also not happy with the McLarens, and there was a difference of opinion with Mark Webber, who used to be Piastri's manager. But the thing is, Mark Webber has kind of taken a back seat and he no longer comes to the paddock and he has distanced himself. Maybe he is working behind the scenes, but we don't know that for sure. But when Zach Brown, the team principal of McLaren, was asked about all of this, he said the drivers are very happy, and he also joked about the fact that if one of them slipped on a banana peel and then basically what that means is if someone got hurt or if someone internally like Lando or Oscar makes a decision to go outside, then there will be room for him to think about it. But at the moment, both Oscar and Lando are happy at McLaren. So clearly this is all a PR game, don't fall for it. We all know that Sky Sports is a British telecasting agency and there have been instances where they have shown their British bias and their dislike towards Max Verstappen. They are usually the first to be critical of Max Verstappen and his decisions. So please take this with a pinch of salt. We shouldn't trust all the information that is coming out. But I'm not saying that this meeting never happened. There is always going to be fire where there is smoke. I think it is greatly exaggerated. They must have just gone and said a hi, but it would have been blown out of proportion. Any two people randomly talking in the paddock can also be blown up out of proportion into a big news. So let's not get carried away. But the thing is, Max was recently rumored to join Mercedes. So what happened over there and why all of a sudden McLaren have become the target? Let's talk about that too. So first off, we need to acknowledge that the contracts signed by these drivers with their teams are not straightforward and simple. It is never a simple line that says, okay, I will drive for you, you pay me this much money. There is nuances, then there is multiple clauses, and that is why contracts never get signed immediately. There is talks between one team and the driver, and then there is a month gap, and then eventually it is announced that the contract has been signed. Why? Because while there is alignment overall, okay, I am okay to drive for this team, then there is the nuances where this team will want some clauses added in, and then the driver will want some clauses added in, and it is all mighty complicated. And that's why contract details are never even revealed to the public. Sometimes we don't even know if it is a multi-year deal. We might just know that it is a multi-year deal, but we don't know if it is 2-year or 3-year or a 4-year deal. And in George Russell's case, Toto renewed the contract last year for 2026, and we don't even know if it is continuing for 2027. Because I remember Laura Winter, who's one of my favorite TV presenters, I remember Laura Winter asking George Russell how long was the contract, and George Russell said it was more than 50-60 pages long or something like that. He even dodged that question. But jokes aside, that 50-60 pages that George Russell mentioned will definitely have a lot of sub clauses that will put in where, okay, in this condition, this person is allowed to make this change, or this person is allowed to ask for a salary hike if he does this. Things like that will be there. George has always wanted a Mercedes seat, and he wanted to win a world champion with Mercedes. So now that George has a championship winning car, I think there might be some contract in the clause that says if George does this and this and this, if the conditions were met, the contract will be renewed for an additional season. And I genuinely believe that's where George's confidence is coming from. In the media, he's been caught saying that he's 100% sure that he's going to be driving for Mercedes in 2027, which means there must be some clauses in his contract that he has met, and he has earned his drive for 2027. Now, till here, I am speaking logic from what I have seen in the past and what I know about how contracts have been discussed in the past. Till here, it is logic. From here on, it is speculation. I have a couple more details that I want to discuss. This is going to be me wearing a tin foil hat on. It is not a conspiracy theory as such, but it is speculation. I believe there is a clause in George's contract that says if Mercedes give him a championship winning car, and if they were first in the Constructors' Championship, George needs to be within so many places and so many points within his teammate. For example, if Mercedes is topping the Constructors' charts, then George Russell has to be within so many points, or between the first and second places, or something like that, within the first 10 races or something like that. Mathematically, I believe George Russell has met all the criteria that kind of gives him a chance to go and ask for a contract extension. And now if Mercedes doesn't want to give a contract extension to George, they have to justify it with a reason, and they have to compensate George fairly for breaking the trust or breaking the contract. So I believe that's where George's confidence is coming from. So again, this last part is pure speculation. I don't know what is happening behind closed doors, sitting 10,000s of kilometers away from the action. I have seen Formula One enough, and I have heard so many fun discussions about contracts, this, that, and all, to know that, yeah, there will be some clauses, and usually it works like this. You meet these criteria, and then the team has to honor their side of the deal. So my understanding is this is what is kind of happening behind the scenes, and that is why suddenly I believe George Russell has been very confident and vocal about him having a shot at driving the Mercedes car again 100% in 2027. Not highly likely, not most probably not 98%, he said 100%. Okay, now let's move on to some hardcore race related questions. Let's start with Ferrari. Why were they so slow? Was it because of the strategy, or was it because the upgrades did not work properly? Now, there is no simple answer to this, but what we can do is look at data and see if there is something that we can infer from that. Firstly, the Red Bull ring just did not suit Ferrari at all. The qualifying positions were the highest they were ever going to get, and that too, it was because of the double yellow flag. A lot of drivers never got a chance to improve their lap times in the last run. But looking purely at tire degradation and race pace, I am going to show you a couple of graphs and then we will see how Ferrari's tire degradation worked, okay? But I do want to say there is a lot of caveats here. This is not accurate because data never tells you the full story, full picture, but it at least guides us in the right direction. So firstly, I'm going to compare Lewis Hamilton's soft tire performance with the overall soft tire performance on the track. Okay, this is an average of every driver who has driven in soft versus Lewis Hamilton's soft. So as you see, the average is on the higher side because it is an average. Ferrari are a fast team, they are in the top side of the grid. So obviously Lewis Hamilton's soft tire lap times will be much better than the average. But if you look closely towards the end, you see that the lap times are dropping off on an average, but Lewis's degradation and the lap time seems to not drop off as much as we expect. In fact, towards the end, Lewis was getting even more out of the car. Now this graph is again fuel adjusted. Now let's do the same comparison for Lewis Hamilton's medium tire versus the overall average, and somehow the medium tire is the exact opposite. It has such a high amount of degradation compared to Lewis's softs. And this is the same issue for Leclerc as well, and the softs never dropped off so much as compared to the mediums. Till lap 60, Leclerc was on a 2-stop strategy and they decided they had nothing to lose and they did an entire 3-stop strategy for him as well, and he had a soft tire stint in the end. So it kind of shows that the 3-stop strategy was probably not the right thing to do, especially if they were going to do a 3-stop strategy, they should have done an earlier stint in the soft tire. Now about the power of the engine upgrades, we saw that the race pace was anyway far from Mercedes and Red Bull to an extent, but let's look at qualifying, because I believe qualifying is a good indicator of the capacity of the engine and how much they can push, because qualifying laps are usually at the limit. This is a comparison of what state the engine was in the final qualifying lap. So the engine mapping is very similar to each other, so they are clipping at the right times, they are super clipping at the right time, they are lifting and coasting at the right time, braking at the right time. All of that is fine, but if you see closely, Leclerc and Hamilton are clipping a lot more than Russell and Kimi turn 1 and turn 3, right? Which means they were harvesting less efficiently compared to Mercedes. And I'm also putting the graph of the top speed. Every time when they are going full throttle, the top speed of the Ferraris are not even matching the top speed of the Mercedes. So yeah, this track, along with the power deficit plus the strategies, both Leclerc and Hamilton never had a chance to even retain P2 and P3 from qualifying. They were always going to drop off from the podium places. But I do believe Leclerc and Hamilton did their best as drivers, because they took care of the tires, they took care of whatever that was possible in the race pace. It was never one single reason. Ferrari's upgrades to the engine seem to have not suited for the Red Bull ring. Maybe the kinder thing to say is that the upgrades were incomplete. Ferrari are bringing more aero upgrades to Silverstone, upgraded Macarena wing, a low drag diffuser and a new exhaust system as well. They are tweaking with the exhaust system. So again, the 2026 regulation cars are behaving so different in each and every track. This same car looked so different in Barcelona. So at this point, I am so underconfident to even compare, okay, this race to this race, because the cars look like they are very different. And in fact, Max Verstappen himself has admitted and added to that statement, which he said he drove a few simulation laps on Silverstone circuit and he ended up laughing. We will discuss about this in a bit. But yeah, the circuits make the cars feel and look so different, so we can never pinpoint one reason, but I would say the regulations itself is the reason why Ferrari were slow in Red Bull Ring. And another question that was asked again was, if Max had pitted earlier, would he have won? And I'm guessing this is in reference to the second pit stop. Two things, okay? Max's car had a problem which he didn't go deep into, but he did mention that the second half of the race was very difficult for him. And the reason why towards the end of the race Max was catching George is because of the tire offset as well, because he had, I think, 6 or 7 laps fresher tires, and that's why he was catching George. And also in the race between George, Max and Kimi for P1, P2 and P3, Max's strategy was always going to be in reaction to George's strategy, and Kimi's strategy was always going to be in reaction to what George and Max were doing. So even if Max had pitted early to undercut George, I believe Kimi and his team would have tweaked the strategy to make it more difficult for Max to catch up. Kimi may have gotten more time to catch Max Verstappen. So I think in hindsight, we know that Kimi had the better pace. So I'm not sure how things would have played out. Max might have even lost his P2 and he would have ended up in P3, or it could be Kimi P1, Max P2 and George P3. I don't know. Just because you change one decision doesn't mean every other thing that happened in the race will remain the same. If Max had pitted early, definitely Kimi and his strategy team would have taken that into consideration and they would have tweaked the strategy to be a little more effective. So yeah, we will never know. In other news outside of the Austrian GP, Max has been very critical of the British GP and the current regulations. He called it a joke and he started laughing. Why? Because there was just going to be a lot of energy starvation in the track. What do I mean by energy starvation? It means the battery has to deplete, but it does not have enough space in the racetrack for it to get fully recharged, right? So the battery power will ultimately be very little compared to other tracks. We are actually looking at comparing it to Australia as well as Japan, I guess. Maybe the FIA puts an engine mode that restricts the maximum power it can recharge, but as per Max Verstappen, it is going to be a whole different track. The new regulations just make everything brand new and difficult. And there is also a lot of chatter about the second half of the season, especially the races that are going to happen in the Middle East. The tensions, if it is not resolved, we are looking at a chaotic change in the second half of the season as well. There are talks about having 2 races in Las Vegas. I'm not a fan of that. There is Abu Dhabi race that is under risk. Either it will get postponed or it will get replaced. A final decision is expected in the next few weeks. In the meantime, all sorts and rumors and recommendations are going around. If you ask me, the best alternative is to have a Tirunelveli GP. Yes, where we feature the bypass road and the Thoothukudi Palankotai road. Yeah, that will be insane. I will pay money to watch it. Jokes aside, we will know for sure in the next couple of weeks. I think by Belgium we will know that how the calendar is going to change, because a lot of things like tickets and travel related, visa related things are dependent on these calendar changes. So they will definitely make this changes well in advance. And I do want to mention that I so love our community on YouTube and Instagram. You guys make me want to make more videos like this, make me want to keep talking to you all, because your comments are interesting, your DMs are interesting, and I absolutely love yapping about Formula 1. So thank you so much for making this community lively, interesting. Thank you for everyone who shows up to the live streams, and thank you for everyone who leaves a comment or watches this video. Really appreciated from the bottom of my heart. We are actually growing really fast. So I am thinking when we hit 10K, we should celebrate it. I'm planning a giveaway. I want to make it really unique and creative. So if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe. The next video is going to be about the Silverstone circuit and what we can expect in this season for Silverstone and in that track, and who is going to be dominant, who's going to do what. All of that analysis for the circuit will be my next video. So thank you so much for watching me all. Please subscribe if you haven't. Please do like and share this video with your friends if you are interested in getting them also to discuss Formula 1. And I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, thank you. See you. Peace.